Well, so good morning, everyone. Happy to see you all. And I am going to suggest that as has become our practice, that we just take a few breaths together to really settle, put everything else aside, and just inhaling and exhaling. And I encourage exhaling through your mouth with some sound. And then you'll notice that the inhale just comes. So we just take a moment or two to really settle in, feel supported wherever it is that we're sitting, and allow ourselves to arrive, to be here, to not still be in the process of getting here. And as I think you all know, I was on retreat last week, and it was a really wonderful experience for me. It was, first of all, it was an absolutely beautiful setting. And the way this particular retreat was organized, there was a lot of time between things. So although we were all in silence the entire time, we were not feeling rushed, as sometimes I do on these retreats that have very specific schedules. So this had some specific schedules, but there was time between everything. So it just felt really nourishing, really, really nourishing. The theme of this retreat was that I may dwell in God's house, an Elul retreat. So it was really all about preparing ourselves, using the month of Elul to prepare ourselves for the upcoming holidays. And how do we do that? And what does it mean? And why do we do that? And all those kinds of questions were coming up. But one of the things that really grabbed my attention, and this won't be a surprise to anybody who's been a regular, and I think you all have been, was that they focused on a particular passage from Psalm 27. And the passage that they chose to focus on, and I'm going to read the interpretation that they used, the teachers at this retreat used for this, was, "One thing do I ask of God. It is this, that I seek, that I may dwell in God's house all the days of my life, to behold God's sweetness and to gaze on God's holy place." So for me, the really operative piece of this is, the one thing do I ask of God, it is this that I seek, that I may dwell in God's house all the days of my life. So, so there was a lot of thinking about and sitting with and trying to parse out, what is God's house? Or where is God's house? So we won't even get into the whole what is God thing, but what's this house? So there are those of us, and I count myself among them, who think of God as being in and around, kind of an energetic field, if you will. So God's house is in me. It's my heart, it's my mind, it's my soul. So as I'm thinking about that, I was feeling really comfortable with all of that and my interpretation. And when I came home, I got really curious about how other people are interpreting this particular passage. So I'm going to just pause and close my window because there's an awful lot of noise coming from outside. Sorry about that. So the Reconstructionist Moxer on page 1217, in case you want to look this up, has their interpretation of Psalm 27. And this passage from that Moxer reads, "One thing I have asked of God, one goal do I pursue, to dwell in the Eternal's house throughout my days, to know the bliss of the sublime, to visit in God's temple." So take that in. Then Norman Fisher, whom some of you may be familiar with, he is a Buddhist. I don't remember what his title is in Buddhism, but he's also very knowledgeable and practicing Jew. And I don't think he's a rabbi, but I'm not sure about that. And he's done a whole volume of his Buddhist interpretations of the Psalms. And he has, for this passage, "One thing I ask for, one thing I hope, to live in your house all the days of my life, to behold your loveliness every morning in the light of your temple dawn." And then there's Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, who is the founder of the Renewal Movement. "Only one thing do I ask of you, Yah. Just this alone do I seek. I want to be at home with you, Yah, all the days of my life. I want to delight in seeing you when I come to visit you in your temple." And then Rabbi Yael Levy, who I've been introduced to this year, and I've been introducing you to her, has this: "One thing I ask of the infinite, one thing I seek, to dwell in the infinite presence all the days of my life, to awaken to the beauty of each moment as I pass through this world." And then, last but not least, Sheila Pels-Weinberg's interpretation of this passage. "I seek only one thing alone, to connect to this moment, nowhere else, only this, nothing less, my palace in time." So, I think all of these interpretations point to God's house as being a sensation as opposed to a place, a physical place, an attitude, if you will. And I find that really interesting because certainly I can only speak for myself, of course, When I first started exploring Jewish texts, I always got so tangled up in the specifics and in the descriptors. Well, what do they mean by a palace? What do they mean by God's place? What do they mean by God? I just would get so tangled up. And if we look at all of this as metaphor and expand our view of how we take it in, I think that it ends up becoming much more accessible and potentially meaningful. So however you choose to define God's palace, God's home, however that lands for you, the question really becomes, how do we access it? Where's the key? So I think that the key really is quieting the mind, allowing what comes up to just be with us without pushing things away, without grasping to have more of what we like. The phrase that was used repeatedly by my teachers this past week was loving awareness. I love that phrase, loving awareness. It's not just awareness, but it's awareness with a degree of allowing and accepting. So I invite us to take a comfortable seat. And think about your posture. I always think that having a broad chest, an open-hearted stance, being in a receiving posture is useful. It's useful for me. It may not be so useful for you. The key is always to be doing what's useful for you. So there's a need to be checking in with yourself, with your body. You should be comfortable. You should not be straining. And yet we want to be in an alert position. So I encourage you to settle into this meditation period however you settle in best, in whatever posture is best for you. And we'll sit in silence for about 10 minutes. I invite you to begin to deepen your breath. And begin to bring your attention outward, slowly and gently. And as you're coming back to the room, I am going to read, once again, Sheila Pels-Weinberg's interpretation of Psalm 27. Awareness is sunlight in the mind. No one can take that from me. Awareness is my life's stronghold. It absorbs all fear. The hindrances and defilements are as close as my flesh and mind, but they dissolve in the light of being known. Even though I feel assaulted by hostile forces, my heart remains confident, balanced, and patient. I seek only one thing alone, to connect to this moment. Nowhere else, only this. Nothing less. My palace in time. When difficulties arise, I have a hiding place in my own heart, a secret tent where I can go and feel safe, a rock to rest my head upon. Greed, hatred, and delusion don't stop coming, but when they are met with a spacious heart, they don't stick around, leaving me so grateful I want to sing out loud. Listen, world, the power of love sets me free. When I turn to face my heart, then everyone and everything is revealed. Let this truth not be hidden from me. If only I could remember always what seems so clear right now. Wisdom would guide my every moment. Awareness and compassion would be a father and a mother to me. But I can follow the guidance of those who have walked this path before, trying to stay alert to the obstacles along the way, because delusion and hatred aren't disappearing so fast. Still, I affirm my faith in the power of goodness. May we take courage. May we be strong. May our hearts be so filled with love, there is no room for anything else. May we see the arising and passing of all conditioned things. May we open to the unconditioned Yud-He, Vav-He. So I just want to remind everybody that we will not be meeting next week on Tuesday. It is the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Wednesday, however, I will be leading meditation for IJS, and that's at 12:30. And you can get the link by just going to their website, jewishspirituality.org. So if you'll miss me on Tuesday, you can catch me on Wednesday. And wishing all of you, everyone, all of us, a wonderful, healthy, happy New Year.